Hello guys, and welcome to my build video for the Stamina Nightblade. Now this build video is specifically designed around not using proc sets. This is absolutely no proc sets. Don't let the maces fool you. I did that as a joke. You'll see why in a sec. They are not Viper. And this build is relying purely on the stats that a Nightblade can actually master to make it a viable class without proc sets in open world PvP. It is a very strong build. It could work on almost all of the stamina classes, if not all of them. I would actually say it would be best on a Stam Sorc. But the reality is that the set and the builds really work successfully. I'll be releasing some great clips with this that I've already got. I've wiped a whole raid with this before. I will upload that on YouTube whenever I manage to work out some editing software, because I lost my old software. Rest in peace. This is just a stream highlight. But let's just smash straight into this build. So, stats-wise, the stats are huge. Now, this obviously misses the resource buff, which would exaggerate a little more. We're going to include that into stats just for recovery sake, so you can see that more actively. But weapon damage, that buffs up to about 3.5k by the time we're done. Tiny bit lower than others. You normally reach about 4k buffed. But really, it's worth it when you look at our max stamina, which is 41k. That is a huge resource pool. Our stamina recovery is 1.8k. If we buff that up with the Relentless, the resource buff, potion, that sort of stuff, it gets like 2.7, something insane on there. And the magic recovery 1k, sorry, unbuffed. You can get to 1.1k with a resource and more as you use the potion and stuff like that. Our spell damage is 1.6k. We buff that up to about 2k. That is important because this build is built around the Werewolf as the name of the build. Should have given you away, really. And then we are 29k health and it's nearly 18k magic up. The reason we're getting that magic up is again for the heals, which I will explain when we go into the Werewolf skills. The sets we're using for this build are as follows. 5-Drow Hulk. Now, there's a bit of a mixture on traits here because we're trying to get the best of all worlds here. We have 4 Impen. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We then have a Divines on the shoulder. I would actually prefer Well-Fitted here. I just haven't had the drop, so in the end I can't use it. But I think Well-Fitted would be the best. 1 Well-Fitted, 4 Impen. Then you have a Reinforced or Sturdy. Those are your 2 options. Heavy Cuirass of the Trainee. You get that from a quest. If you want to see that, go to my Twitch link below, !Trainee. It will show you where you get those drops. There's some pieces that aren't. Unfortunately, we then have to run a Light Sash, which is training. It's not the best, but we still have enough stats on our crit resistant things to deal with it, and it's worth it for the stats. I promise you that. The stats are so much, so we do run that. Finally, for the Trainee, we're running 3 pieces of the Robust Jewelry, all enchanted with the weapon damage enchant because we have enough recovery anyway. Our maces are then Agility, not Viper, even though they're the same style. I just like the style. They're running with the Crushing enchant and the weapon damage enchant. The spell damage obviously also being useful. And then our back bar is a Maelstrom 2-hander. Put any poison you like here. Don't be a prick. Don't run the cost increased poison. Run a manly one like this. It's far nicer. Fuck the cost increased poison. Remove that from the game, Zenimax. The armor, by the way, you will have noticed is all Triglyph enchanted. Now, a lot of people in the chat will have cry about this. They'll be like, oh, Blobs, why did you enchant it? It's a joke. You need that magicka. It's very important you have that on your wolf. I've tried this without the tri-enchant. It is a huge difference having that tri-enchant on there. It's the difference between surviving and not surviving. Honestly, it is. If you do get debuffed in the Werewolf, you're probably going to get fucked if you are in a 1v1 situation. It is more of a 1vx build, I'll be honest with you. 1v1, it can work. It will work. If you're playing a proc build, you probably lose. But 1vx, it is very good, okay? Do remember that this is a 1vx build specifically. It's extremely successful there. On the skills then, we are running Blood Craze. That is giving us a huge heal over time, damage over time, that sort of stuff. Surprise attacks, spam or DPS, sex is anything. Relentless Focus for a buff. Cloak. I have the wrong morph for that. You want the crit morph. Don't ask me why I picked that morph. I was blind at the time. I haven't bothered respecing since. You want the one that gives you crit morph. And then siphoning attacks for the sustain. We'll come on to the ult in a bit. On the other bar, we have Shadow Image. That's a great skill for kiting around. It gives you more max health because of the shadow passives again. We are then getting Minor Main from it. A small dot. All in all, run that skill. It's a nice one for kiting. You're not forced to, though. This is probably your most interchangeable spot on the whole bar. If you do want to swap it, feel free if you have another skill you prefer. We're then running Vigor for a heal. Keep that up at all times in the fight. You're trying to survive until you get your ulti. Rally for our more burst heal and another dot heal. Shuffle for survivability. You could run Blur here. You do have enough magicka to do it. The only reason I run Shuffle is against magicka DK. It's great against the rooting. So I do like having the counter to the roots. If you're not getting rooted too hard, Blur would actually be the better for sustain. It's marginal though, so I prefer Shuffle overall. We then run Fear. It's a nice CC. End of that really. I mean, it's fairly obvious. Our ultimate on both bars, because it amps our recovery, is the Werewolf ultimate. And I picked the Pack Leader morph. This one gives you 2 familiars. It does not give you as much light damage, bleed damage, which the other morph would give you. However, those wolves in 1vx, remember this is a 1vx build. I know someone's going to comment like this is a shit dueling build. I'm going to tell you, get lost. It is a 1vx build. I'm going to state that real clear. 1vx. Someone timestamp that in the chat for me. That ultimate is so useful because those wolves get in the way of people, and it's a great way of getting a line of sight open world if you can't get there. They're very handy in an open world situation. In terms of the actual werewolf skills, we are using Brutal Pounce. That's an AoE morph that way. We get a normal damage, and then it does the splash damage on everyone else. I do like that morph. The heal, you definitely want this one. It gives you the weapon damage afterwards, as well as a large heal. The other morph is like a dot heal. It's not really worth it because it scales too heavily on spell damage, which still isn't quite high enough for that. But the base heal is now 12k, which is really great. You get a good size heal because of this magic and spell damage we have, and that's without even the enchant. Without those try enchants, you're probably looking at about 9k, which just doesn't really cut it open world. I'm sorry about that. We use Rousing Roar. This is the one that gives us brutality after it because we can't obviously get brutality whilst we're in the wolf form since we use Rally for that. You could also run a potion if you want to go with the other morph, but frankly this morph is better anyway. We then use Howl of Agony. This one is so good. Huge amount of damage on that when it's buffed up, 15, even 20k. My record on play is 25k crit. And you get a 30% damage increase against feared enemies. So that is really, really brutal. That's your main spammable DPS. Try fear them before it. Make sure you're heavy attacking. The best way to use a wolf is heavy attack, 3 light attacks, okay? And in each of those, obviously, we have an ability, whichever that may be. Claws of Life, that's a nice large dot. Keep that up all times. It gives you a good heal over time after it as well. Okay, 1vx build. Remember that, guys, 1vx build. In terms of our Mundus, obviously we're Werewolf, you already know that. We're running the Serpent, and our food to get these stats is actually the gold food. If you wanted, you could run the Tri-Food as a Stamsork. I still like the magic recovery, so I personally would go for this. But Stamsork would also get a lot of skills to amp your stamina up. So that's where I think this would shine the most. I just haven't leveled mine up yet. Finally, onto potions before the champion points. We are running Lingering Health for survivability if we can. If needs be, especially if it costs increased poison, you want to run the tri-pots or the weapon damage pots for survivability. I would always suggest keeping some detection pots whilst you're in the wolf form. A lot of Nightblades will panic, they'll cloak, and that'll be the end of the fight. So run a detect pot. Those guys won't really know what to do at that point because a lot of people just cloak away. People are shit with that skill. They just like play hide and seek. It ain't a hide and seek game, it's a fight. So yeah, basically run a detect pot somewhere at least to get it. And this is a nice one. It gives you major savagery as well. There's another one with Lingering as well, which is another good one. So those are your 2 good morphs. Finally, onto the champion points. We have 100 into Warlord for reducing the stamina cost. It's very important. The wolf cost is high. 6 in Magician. You could put more in there. You could get up to 13. It's another good scaling point because the heal is expensive as anything. But to be honest, you should be able to sustain it as long as you keep your Claws of Life up. You can tank a lot of people in this stuff. We then have 56 in Mooncraft for the recovery. 6 in Arcanist because our magic recovery is good. May as well get some in there. 6 in Tenacity because Wolf has a passive to give you more resources back on heavy attack. Amp that up even more. A few points helps a lot. And finally 13 in Tumbling to help with the dodging. Blue Tree, we have 32 in Blessed for the healing. Quite important we get a decent amount in those healings, again for the wolf stuff. And 2 in Elfborn just in case we do crit on the wolf. It's not likely, but 2 gives you a huge gain for a very small amount of points, so in my opinion it's worth it. We have 2 on 1 here, again small differences just for shielded targets, heavy attacks, that sort of stuff. May as well put some in there, it's very, very large gain for a small amount. 100 into Mighty for the base damage, 22 in Precise Strikes for crits, 22 in Piercing, and 6 in Thermotouch for our few dots on the wolf and the Raining Slashes. In the Red Tree, 46 in Crit Resist. It's quite a lot. That's compensating for the loss of the Impen on the traits. You don't need more Impen. Don't worry about getting that. There's no reason to have it. So this deals with the problem. We're already 2k Crit Resist, which is about fine. 13 in Fixed Skin for reducing dot damage. 93 in Hardy. You'll notice that's significantly biased over the 22 in Elemental Defender. The reason for that is that you are a werewolf. And werewolves take a lot of extra poison damage. Viper is poison damage. Bad news. Half the cancerous community runs some sort of damage in poison. By the way, I don't mean half the whole community. I mean like the dickhead side of it. You want to make sure you got something to deal with that damage because in a wolf it's going to hurt. And a lot of poison injections. So you need a good amount of points into there. You want to make sure whatever you do in here, if you change it, keep 120 points in the lady to unlock Unchained Passive. That's just too good to get. Reduce the cost of stamina abilities by 80% for 3 seconds after breaking a stun, fear, you name it. Make sure you got that. Last but not least, 13 in Quick Recovery for that extra healing. But that basically covers everything. Our stats are sexy, the damage is even more sexy, and frankly, the build really works successfully. So I hope I can release you some nice clips with this. If I did miss anything, let me know in the chat. I normally do. But all in all, I really like the build. There are obviously the traits on here that can be a problem, but overall this build is very, very successful. If you do, by the way, go for traits on here, you want to go sharpen maces as your weapons. It's definitely worth it over swords in terms of overall damage these days. Your 2-Anna, you're not actually going to ever DPS on there, so really defending would be better than sharpened. But precise is not really a go-to trait, so a lot of things would be better than precise. But yeah, I think I've covered everything, guys. Thank you for watching. Have a lovely day. Good luck with the build if you decide to run it. Werewolf is quite a fun playstyle. It's not easy to play, but I hope to see some more of you out there, guys. Scrap the proc sets. Get into something unique. That set is going to get nerfed eventually. Once those proc sets get nerfed, half the community in stamina is going to be clueless. Let's run something unique and get yourselves clued in, guys. Good luck, and I'll see you guys again.